So today I'm going to take you through the process of building lithium-ion battery packs for whatever needs you have, mostly built for UAVs. Today we're using 21700 cells instead of 18650 because that's what's most suitable for me. So the first thing you want to do is check the cell voltages of every individual cell to make sure they are typically in the same range. So if you can see that all my cells are at about 3.63 volts, which is like storage charge, and my multimeter is at 20 volts because that's what I'm expecting. And then next you want to look for some way to make all the cells align equally. So I'm using hot glue and a hot glue gun with a very flat surface. I'm just improvising here to keep them together in rows of 6. So I'm doing 6S6P, so 6 cells in series and 6 in parallel for what I want to do. So when you increase your parallel cells, um you're getting more current. So here my fingers, I'm using my fingers to show you how current flows from the positive terminals all the way down to the negative terminals, and you must follow that when you make your connections. So you can see these nickel strips will make the connection. So this particular connection is going to be joining that negative to the other positive side. If you go from down, it's positive, negative, and positive. So this connection here is going to be negative to positive. That's what's going to join it. So you see I skipped that line because you now have to join the other negative to the other positive and then negative to positive. Just keep going and you will understand it. So, but when you need to be very careful here so that you don't join the wrong things and you don't create a loop. So I'm using spot welding instead of soldering. I'm avoiding soldering because it's a bit more tedious and you can actually damage your cells if you stay there too long with too much heat. So do the same thing for all the cells, and when you're done, flip the entire thing over and then trace that thing again, positive down to negative, down to positive to negative, positive, all the way down to negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and all the way down. So you see these are the two cells we're connecting now, and the other two lines, you see these other, you need to be careful. These two should not touch, they should not be connected at all because they are already connected under. So if you make that connection, you're creating a loop which is going to create a lot of sparks. So you really need to be careful you don't join those two cells. I'm taking a lot of precautions here. I'm using Captain tape to cover it in case my hand kind of slips while I'm doing the spot welding. So you see the two we are going to join together, those two rows. So we usually have them in series and then in parallels. You don't join those two. Those two should never touch because like before they are connected under. If you join them, you're going to create a loop, which is going to create a lot of sparks. So I'm also covering that entire column just to avoid issues. And you can see this one also is dangerous. I could be spot welding and my hand slips and everything connects that line. So I need to also cover that line, that column, because it should never touch the other one. It will create a ground, it's going to a loop. So also using spot welding. So you do the same thing as you did before until you're complete on this other side. When you're done, remove this strip, go to the other side and then cover this other end that you're done with, in case, because that's a long strip, it can actually slip into a different column and you're creating a bridge, you're creating a short circuit. Actually, that's a technical term. So now what's left is for us to connect our positive, which will form our main positive. That's where uh our positive lead is going to come out from. So that's our positive line, and so we need to join them together because they are in parallel. So what we're doing is again 6S 6P. The parallel increases the current and also the milliamp hours, as the capacity. And so this other end is our negative end. We're also covering this up so we don't mistakenly slip into that column. So we'll do the same thing for our negative end, also using spot welding for everything. The next step I'm going to do is to connect the battery leads to both the positive and the negative terminals. So these are the battery leads. But I don't want to, because I need to solder them. I can't spot weld them, but I don't want to solder them on the battery itself. So I'm kind of soldering them with nickel strips outside of the battery so I don't add too much heat to the batteries. When I do that, I'm now going to spot weld those strips back to the battery. I hope that makes sense. So I'm creating one each for both the negative and the positive terminal. So this, I'm also passing those leads into through the batteries for some kind of ergonomics. So we'll have a nice finish. And I skipped a lot of steps here. Like I'm supposed to also show you how to connect the balance leads, but that's a talk for another day. But the balance leads helps us know the cell voltage for each row. Actually, it's supposed to be each cell, but since we're doing parallel, I would say for each row. The balance leads are for 6 cells, there are 7. So one common ground, and then the rest would check the voltage for each row. Here I've finished the wrapping. This is also another skipped step, but you need to wrap it and pad it with a lot of paddings just to prevent any kind of damage to the wires underneath. So after this wrapping, we're now going to wrap in PVC heat shrink. So you just want to measure out what you need and cut out the excesses. I think I cut a little bit too much here, but with some skill and experience, it still came out nice. So here I have to like cut out a hole for the battery leads so that when we shrink that tube, we have access to charging the battery. And I do the same thing also for the balance leads, as you can see next. And then I'm going to use a heat gun to carefully, at the right temperature, to carefully shrink down this tube. It takes a bit of skill to actually get this thing right, but if you just keep going patiently and in the right proportions, you should end up with a neat finish. So just keep going around all the way through and try to smoothen anything that is really bad or crooked. Try to go around and around, and after some time you get a kind of smooth finish. Just it takes a bit of patience actually. And this is the finished brick. It's quite heavy because it's 21700 cells are not exactly light. I think each of them weighs like 69 grams, and that's 36 of them. That's 6 by 6, so that's really heavy. So I think this one turned out nice. The next step would be to plug it into a charger. We're not using a BMS, battery management system, here because we're using a LiPo charger to actually charge this. So this LiPo charger can charge a maximum of 6 cells. So immediately I plug it in, you're seeing 22.1, which is the nominal voltage for 6S battery. I don't think you can see the individual cells, but this LiPo charger actually shows you the individual cell voltages as you plug in the balance leads. That's why we use balance leads, so that when you charge, it actually balances all the individual cells in series, so that you're not just looking for one complete lump sum for full voltage. Full voltage for 6 cell batteries is 25.2, but I'm charging it but the nominal voltage is 22.2. So I'm about to charge it all the way to 25.2. I'm using 5 amps initially because this is a new build. I want to see progressively increase the currents to see how it handles current, to make sure that nothing is wrong. And take all the precautions. LiPo batteries and Li-ion batteries are very dangerous. You don't want to mess with them. You don't want to charge them unattended. You don't want to charge them and then go and get something outside. You want to stay there. You want to watch them and even feel them for heat and temperature to make sure everything is working very well. So we typically want to charge them to full voltage and discharge them to check the milliamp hours and all that. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to reply. Thank you very much.